I worked the overnight shift at a Sinclair station on the eastern edge of Calder County for 11 years, and in all that time I only ever took down one photo from the wall behind the register. The wall was for people who never made it to Mercy. Drivers came in for coffee, gas, cigarettes, directions. If I felt the pressure in my chest, I took their picture. Most of them smiled. Most of them thanked me. Then they drove north, and sooner or later, their bodies were found. Except Aaron Petrie. Aaron came back. I am telling you this because I am 56 years old. My doctor says my heart is not what it used to be, and I do not want to die with this still inside my chest. The station sat at the intersection of Old State Road 9 and a county spur that everyone called Mercy Road, though the sign at the turnoff read County Route 114. Mercy Road went north for about 41 miles through what used to be dairy country and came out at a town called Mercy, which had a population of around 800 and a hospital that had closed in 1998, and a diner that stayed open because the truckers needed somewhere to stop. Between our station and Mercy, there was nothing. No houses, no other gas, no cell service for most of it, no working payphones, and after about mile 20, the trees closed over the road so tightly that in the summer you drove through it like a green tunnel, and in the winter the branches cracked under the weight of the ice, and sometimes came down across the road dark, and nobody found it until morning. We were the last station before that stretch. The next pump going north was in Mercy itself, and the pumps in Mercy had a habit of being out of service, so drivers who knew the road filled up with us, and drivers who did not know them sometimes came back to us on the shoulder with empty tanks and apologetic faces. And we sold them a 2-gallon jug of gas for $8 and let them use the bathroom and sent them on their way. The owner when I started was a man named Delmar Pratt. He was 73 years old when he hired me, and he had owned the station since 1971, and he lived in a trailer behind the garage bay with a 3-legged cat named Sheriff. Delmar hired me because his previous overnight clerk had left without notice, and because I had just come off 18 months of unemployment after the plant in Brantley closed, and because I told him during the interview that I did not have a problem with being alone. He looked at me a long time after I said that. Then he said, "Son, I don't need somebody who doesn't have a problem being alone. I need somebody who doesn't have a problem being the only one awake." I did not know what he meant at the time. I thought it was the kind of thing an old man says to sound wise. I took the job. It paid $8 an hour, which in 2013 was not nothing, and it came with a small apartment above the garage that Delmar rented to me for $200 a month, which meant I could keep almost everything I made. I had been sleeping on my sister's couch in Owensboro for a year and a half. I would have taken less. The first thing I want you to understand is that the station looked ordinary, not abandoned, not cursed, just old, clean, and tired. The pumps worked, the coffee was always hot, the cigarettes were behind the counter, and there was a restroom key attached to a long piece of wood so nobody could walk off it. That was what made it worse. Nothing about the place warned me what it was keeping. Behind the register, on the wall to the left of the cigarette case, there was a corkboard. It was about 4 feet wide and 3 feet tall, and it was covered in photographs. Most of them were snapshots, 4 by 6, a few larger. Some were Polaroids that had gone orange at the edges. Some were printouts of digital photos on cheap paper that had curled in the corners. They were pinned up 3 and 4 deep in places, overlapping, layered over the years. There must have been 200 of them, maybe more. I never counted. On my first night, Delmar walked me through the register and the lottery machine and the coffee pot. And then he stopped at the court and he said, "These are the ones who didn't make it." He said it the way another man might have said, "These are my grandkids." Matter of fact, a little proud, even. I looked at the board. I said, "Didn't make it where?" He said, "To Mercy, or Pasta. I don't know which, for most of them. They came in here, they got gas, coffee, or a sandwich, they went north, and they never got where they were going." I said, "And their families brought you the pictures?" He said, "Some of them. Most of them I took. I have a camera under the counter. When someone comes in late and they're heading up Mercy, and I get a feeling, I ask if they'll let me take their picture. Most of them say yes. People are polite." I stared at him. I said, "You do what?" He said, "You'll understand. Give it a month." I did not understand. I thought Delmar was a strange old man, a morbid hobby. I thought the corkboard was a local curiosity, maybe a kind of memorial kept for drivers who had gone missing over the years on a bad stretch of road. There were bad stretches of road all over this part of the country. Mercy Road was one of them. It iced over in the winter. It fogged in the spring. It flooded in the fall. And there were parts of it where the shoulder dropped 6 feet down into a ditch, and you would not see the ditch until you were in it. People went missing. That was not in itself supernatural. I started my shift that night at 10. Delmar went back to his trailer. I sat behind the register, and I read a paperback, and I rang up 4 customers between 10 and 2. All 4 of them were going south. I closed out the coffee pot at 3 and refilled it at 4, and at 4:30, a man in a white pickup came in. He asked me how far it was to Mercy, and I told him 41 miles. He asked if there was gas between here and there. I told him no. He filled up. He bought a pack of Marlboro Reds, a can of Red Bull. He was maybe 40 years old, clean-shaven, wearing a green jacket with a patch on his sleeve that said something I couldn't read. He was polite. He asked how my night was going. He paid in cash. When he left, I watched his taillights turn onto Mercy Road. I watched them until they disappeared around the first bend. And I thought, without wanting to think it, I should have taken his picture. I did not take his picture. Of course I did not. I was a sane man on my first night of a new job, and I did not believe anything Delmar had told me. And the camera under the counter, which I had noticed when Delmar pointed it out, stayed under the counter. The man in the green jacket drove north into the dark, and I finished my shift, and I went upstairs, and I slept, and I did not think about him again for almost 3 weeks. 3 weeks later, Delmar came into the station at the start of my shift, and he had a newspaper in his hand. He said, "You remember the fellow in the white pickup, your first week?" I said I did. He said, "They found his truck yesterday in the reservoir up past mile 34. Been down there since the night it came through. Divers went down and fishermen spotted something." He put the paper on the counter in front of me. There was a photo of the truck being pulled up onto the flatbed. There was a smaller photo instead of the man from his driver's license. His name was Kevin Halsey. He was 38. He had been on his way to his mother's house in Mercy for her birthday. He had never arrived. His mother had reported him missing the next morning. The police had searched Mercy Road and found nothing, because nothing on the surface of the road had indicated where he went in. Delmar said, "I should have taken his picture. I was asleep when he came in. That's on me." I said, "Delmar, that's a coincidence." He said, "I've been here 42 years, son. I don't call it a coincidence anymore." He left the newspaper on the counter. He went back to his trailer. I read the article 3 times. Then I looked at the courtroom. I looked at the faces. Some of them were smiling. Some of them looked tired. Some of them were looking straight into the camera, and some of them were half-turned, like they had been caught mid-sentence. I thought about the man in the green jacket, and I thought about how he had asked me how my night was going, and I thought about how I had said, "Not bad, can't complain." Those were the last words he heard from another living person, as far as anyone knew. I started taking the pictures. I want to tell you how it worked, because I think the how is important. It was not, in most cases, a clear feeling. It was not a voice in my head saying, "This one." It was more like the way you can tell sometimes, just by looking at a dog, that it is going to bite. Something in the way the person held themselves. Something in the timing of the visit. Something in the way the fluorescence hit their face. I would be ringing someone up and I would feel it come over me. A small pressure behind the sternum. A tightness I can only describe as the feeling of being watched from behind, even though there was no one behind me. And I would say, as casually as I could, "Hey, would you mind if I took your picture? We keep a little gallery of travelers. It's a station tradition." Most of them said yes. Delmar had been right about that. People are polite, especially at 3 in the morning, especially when they are alone at a gas station in the middle of nowhere, and a stranger behind a counter is being friendly to them. They would stand by the door or next to the coffee station, and they would smile, and I would take the picture with the little digital camera Delmar had bought in 2009, and I would tell them to have a safe drive, and they would go. Most of them arrived. Most of the pictures stayed in a box under the counter until Delmar and I were sure the person was alive. We checked papers, missing person sites, and sometimes called the diner in Mercy. The ones who made it were thrown away. The ones who did not make it went on the wall. And every time a new photo went up, the station seemed to settle. The lights stopped buzzing. The coffee stopped tasting burned. The air behind the register felt lighter, like something had been fed and was no longer leaning over my shoulder. In my 11 years at the station, I put 43 photographs on that wall. Delmar had put up the rest, going back to 1983 when he had started the practice. He had gotten the idea, he told me once, after a young woman named Tessa Clay had come in on a rainy October night and asked him for directions to Mercy, and he had given her the directions, and she had gone out to her car, and he had watched her through the window, and she had sat in her car for almost 10 minutes before she started. And during those 10 minutes, he had felt the same pressure behind his sternum that I would come to know, and he had not known what to do with her. She had driven off, and she had never arrived in Mercy, and her car had been found 2 weeks later at the bottom of a gully near mile 29. And Delmar had thought, for the rest of his life, about how he could have gone out there and knocked on her window and asked her if she was all right. He told himself, after that the pictures were a way of knocking on the window, a way of saying, "I see you. I see that you are here. I am making a record of you, so that if you do not arrive, someone will know you passed through." That was what he told himself. I believed him for a long time. I do not believe him anymore. The station kept the photos because it wanted to keep the photos. That is the part that took me years to understand. The pressure behind the sternum was not a warning. It was a hunger. And the station, or Mercy Road, or whatever lived in the stretch of trees between us and the reservoir, had been using Delmar, and then it started using me to mark the ones it was going to take. I know how that sounds. I'm going to keep telling you what happened, and you can decide. Here is the first thing that made me start to suspect. In my 4th year at the station, I took a picture of a woman named Ruth Abano. She was 51. She was driving a silver Camry. She had come down from Ohio to visit her son in Mercy, who was recovering from a back surgery and could not drive himself around. She was a small woman with short gray hair. She wore a navy cardigan, and she bought a bottle of water and a bag of pretzels. I felt the pressure. I asked for her picture. She laughed and said her hair was a mess from the drive, but she let me take it. She stood by the door with a bag of pretzels in her hand, and she smiled with her mouth closed. 3 days later, Delmar came into the station and told me Ruth Abano had not arrived at her son's house. The son had called the state police. The police had driven Mercy Road and found nothing. I said, "Put her up." Delmar said, "Not yet. Give it a week." 4 days after that, Ruth Abano walked into the station. She had the same navy cardigan on. It was dry, but there were pine needles caught in the hem and a dark smear of mud on one sleeve. She came up to the counter and said, "I wanted to thank you for taking my picture the other night. It was very sweet." I stared at her. I said, "Ma'am, are you all right? Your son called the police." She said, "My son, what do you mean?" I said, "You never made it to Mercy. You were missing." She looked at me like I had said something in a language she did not speak. She said, "I got to Mercy that night. I had dinner with Danny. I'm on my way home now. I just wanted to stop and say thank you." And she smiled. And she walked out of the station. And she got into her silver Camry. And she drove south. I called Delmar. I told him what had happened. He came over from the trailer in slippers, and he stood at the counter, and he looked at me, and he said, "Did she look like her picture?" I said, "Yes, of course she did." He said, "Get the picture." I got the picture out of the box under the counter. I handed it to him. He looked at it for a long time. Then he handed it back to me, and he said, "Put it on the wall." I said, "She's alive, Delmar. She just walked in here." He said, "Put it on the wall." I put it on the wall. The next morning, I called the state police in Mercy. I asked if Ruth Abano had been found. The officer who took my call said, "Sir, Ruth Abano's body was recovered yesterday evening. Her car went off the road at mile 31. It had been down in the brush. We're contacting the family now." I did not tell him she had walked into my station the night before. I did not know how to tell him. I sat behind the counter, and I looked at the corkboard, and I looked at Ruth Abano's picture, pinned up between a young man in a ball cap and a woman holding a baby, and I thought about the woman in the navy cardigan who had thanked me for taking her picture, and I thought about her voice, and I thought about how she had said my son. What do you mean? I stopped eating that week. I lost 9 pounds. Delmar came over one night, and he sat down across from me in the back booth, and he said, "You saw one?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I've seen 6 over the years. They come back to say thank you. They come back to see the picture. I think they don't know, at first, that they are not the ones who arrive. I think the road sends them back. I don't know why." I said, "Delmar, what are we doing? What is this wall?" He said, "I don't know, son. I used to think I was a witness. I'm not sure anymore." He went back to his trailer. He died the next spring, in his sleep, in the trailer, with Sheriff Cat on his chest. He was 81. He left me the station in his will. I had not known he had a will. I had not known I was in it. The lawyer who read it to me in his office in Brantley said Delmar had signed it 6 months after I started working for him. I thought about selling. I thought about closing up the station and getting into my truck and driving south and not stopping until I ran out of money or ran out of country. I did not. I told myself I stayed because the station was all I had, because I was 50 by then and had no other work lined up, because Delmar had trusted me with it. Those were the reasons I told myself. They were not the reasons. The reason I stayed was that by then I could feel the station, the way you feel a tooth that is going to need to be pulled. I could feel it waiting for me every afternoon from the apartment upstairs. I could feel the corkboard. I could feel the pressure behind my sternum, even when there was no one in the store. And I had come to believe, without wanting to believe, that if I left, something worse would happen. I did not know what. I did not want to find out. So I stayed. I took pictures. I kept the wall. I want to tell you about the man I took off the wall. His name was Aaron Petrie. He came into the station on a Tuesday in April at around 1 in the morning in a brown Honda Civic with Illinois plates. He was 26 years old. He was tall and thin. He had a denim jacket over a black t-shirt, and he had not shaved in a few days. His eyes were red, and he had clearly been crying at some point in the recent past. He came up to the counter with a can of Coke and a bag of beef jerky, and he paid with a debit card. And while I was running the card, he said, without my asking, "I'm driving up to see my brother." I said, "In Mercy?" He said, "Yeah, he's at the county facility there. He's been there since January." He paused. Then he said, "He tried to kill himself in December. My parents put him in. I haven't been up to see him yet. Been meaning to. My mom called this morning and she told me he's been asking if I'm ever going to come, and I got in the car. I handed him his receipt. I did not feel the pressure. I want to be clear about that. I did not feel it. I felt something else, a kind of sadness, the way you feel sad when a stranger tells you something too personal at a counter, and you don't know what to say. I said, "That's a good thing you're doing. Drive safe. It's dark up there." He said, "Thank you." He picked up his coat and his jerky, and then, as he was turning toward the door, I felt it. Late. Too late. The pressure hit me like a hand pressed flat against my chest from the inside, and I almost said something, and then I didn't, because I had already rung him up, because he was already at the door, because what was I going to say? "Wait, sir, can I take your picture?" And I watched him walk out, and I watched him get into the Civic, and I watched his brake lights turn onto Mercy Road, and I watched him go north. I sat behind the counter. I thought, maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was gas. Maybe it was sadness. Maybe the pressure didn't mean what I thought it meant. This time. At 4 in the morning, the brown Civic came back. He pulled up to the pump. He got out. He came into the store carrying the empty Coke can. His clothes looked dry, but the floor darkened under each step he took, as if water was dripping from somewhere I could not see. He threw the can in the trash by the door and came up to the counter. "Hey," he said, "sorry to bother you. I forgot to ask if you have a restroom." I stared at him. I said, "You were just here." He said, "Yeah, a few hours ago. I got most of the way up, and I realized I was going to burst. There's nothing on that road." I said, "You went to Mercy." He said, "No, man, I turned around. I was almost there, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't walk in there. I'm going to go back home, and I'm going to try again next week when I've got my head on straight." I gave him the bathroom key. My hands were shaking. He took it. He went into the bathroom. I listened to the door close. I stood behind the counter, and I thought, he turned around. He turned around. He did not go to Mercy. And then I thought, but did he come back from Mercy? I had not felt the pressure the first time he came in until he was at the door. I had felt it as he was leaving. I had understood the pressure for 11 years as a warning about the road ahead. But what if it had not been that? What if it had been the opposite? What if the pressure was what the station felt when one of them was already gone? When the person standing in front of me was already in some way I did not understand, not going to arrive? What if the pressure was not prophecy, but recognition? And then he had come back. And if the pressure meant he was one of the ones the road took, then the man in my bathroom was not Aaron Petrie. He was whatever the road had given back, the way it had given back Ruth Abana in her navy cardigan, to come say thank you, to come look at the picture that I had not, this time, taken. I did not have a picture of him. That was the thing I kept circling back to. I had not taken his picture. There was nothing of him on the wall, which, if Delmar's theory had been right, meant the road had no claim on him, which meant he should have arrived. Which meant he had arrived. Which meant the man in my bathroom was not a copy sent back from the road. He was the real Aaron Petrie, who had simply not been able to do the hard thing he had come to do, and had turned around and had stopped to pee on his way home. I was working it out like a math problem while he was in the bathroom. I was trying to make it add up. He came out, he handed me the key, and his fingers were cold enough that I felt it through the wood. "Thanks, man," he said. Then he paused. "Hey, this is going to sound weird, but when I came in earlier, did you feel anything?" I said, "What?" He said, "I don't know. I felt weird when I left, like I forgot something. But I didn't forget anything. I had my wallet. I had my phone. It was just a feeling. It's been bugging me the whole drive." I said, "I don't know what you mean." He looked at me. He looked at me the way the woman in the navy cardigan had looked at me. Not hostile, not confused. Just looking, like he was trying to see through my face to something behind it. He said, "You sure?" I said, "I'm sure." He nodded. He said, "Okay, well, thanks again." And he went out. We got into his Civic, and I watched him pull out of the lot, and I watched him turn south. I stood behind the counter for a long time. Then I went out to the pump. I had not charged him for gas, because he had not gotten gas. The pump readout was 0. But there was a smell on the concrete under where the Civic had been parked. It smelled like the lake when it turned over in the spring. Algae, cold, and something organic underneath. I went back inside. I sat at the counter. I waited for the sun to come up. At 9 in the morning, a woman called the station. She said she was calling from the Mercer County Sheriff's Office. She said they were trying to trace the movements of a man named Aaron Petrie. She said his brown Honda Civic had gone off Mercy Road at approximately 2 in the morning at mile 18 into a stand of pines. She said the vehicle had been found by a logging truck driver at dawn. She said Aaron Petrie had been pronounced dead at the scene. She said they were canvassing businesses along Route 9 to see if anyone had seen him the night before. I said he had come in around 1. I said he had bought a Coke, a bag of jerky. I said he had been going to see his brother. I said he had seemed sad but coherent. He did not say he had come back. She thanked me. She asked if we had security footage. I said the cameras had been broken for over a year, which was a lie. I do not know why I lied. I lied before I had time to think about it. She said that was all right. She thanked me again, and she hung up. I went to the courtroom. I looked at the faces. 200 faces, in 3 and 4 deep, going back 41 years. I thought about Delmar sitting at his counter in 1983, watching Tessa Clay sit in her car in the rain. And I thought about Delmar deciding in that moment that he would take the pictures because he could not bring himself to knock on the window. I thought about the smell under the Civic. I went to the box under the counter, the box where I kept the photos of people who had not yet been confirmed alive or dead. I opened it. I looked through it. I found the pictures I had taken in the last week, the last month, the last 6 months. I stacked them on the counter, and then, without planning to do it, I went to the courtroom and I started taking photos down. I took them all down, every one. I put them in a cardboard box from the back room, and I carried the box out to the dumpster behind the station, and I put the box in the dumpster, and I closed the lid. Then I went back inside. I took the camera out from under the counter. I took out the memory card. I put the memory card in the microwave we used for burritos, and I ran it for 2 minutes. Then I took the melted card out, and I threw it away. I sat down behind the counter. I waited. Nothing happened. For about 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then the pressure started, not behind my sternum, in the whole store. The air in the store got heavy, like before a storm, and the fluorescent lights began to hum at a pitch I had never heard them hum at before. And the coffee pots, both of them full of fresh coffee I had brewed an hour earlier, began to tick against their burners. The coffee in the pots started to bubble, not boil, bubble. Slow, heavy bubbles coming up from the bottom. The pots had not been turned on. The door chimed. I looked up. There was no one at the door. The door was closed. The chime had gone off anyway. It chimed again, and again, every 10 seconds or so, like someone was coming in, coming in, coming in. I sat behind the counter. I did not move. I did not speak. I understood, sitting there, that I had done something I was not supposed to do. I had taken the faces off the wall. I had broken the record. I had closed the ledger. And whatever the station was, whatever had used Del Mar for 42 years and then used me for 11, was telling me in the only way it could that this was not allowed. The chime went on for about an hour. Then it stopped. The coffee stopped bubbling. The lights went back to normal. The air got light again. I thought I had won something. I did not know yet what I had lost. That night, my first customer was a young woman in a red Jeep. She came in around 11. She bought a pack of gum and a $20 fill. I rang her up. I did not feel the pressure. I felt nothing. I watched her go out to her Jeep, and I watched her drive north. And I did not take her picture, because I had thrown away the camera, because I was done. In the morning, I called the diner in Mercy. I asked if a young woman in a red Jeep had come in. The woman who answered said no, but she would keep an eye on it. I called back at noon. I called back at 3. By 6 that evening, I was calling the sheriff's office. I gave them a description. I gave them the license plate number that I had written down out of habit before I had thrown the photos away. They said they would check the road. They did not find it. They did not find her Jeep. They did not find anything. She had not arrived in Mercy. She had not come back to me. She was simply gone, in a way that none of the others had ever been gone, because none of the others had been gone without a picture. This is the part I have not told anyone. In the 11 years Del Mar and I had taken photos, everyone the road took had been found. Some of them had been found fast. Some of them had been found slow. But every single one of them had been found. Bodies in gullies, cars in reservoirs, remains in ditches. The road took them, but it also, eventually, gave them back. The pictures on the wall were a record of people who had been recovered, mourned, buried, named. The young woman in the red Jeep was never found. Her family put flyers up. Her sister came to the station a month later with a stack of flyers and asked if she could tape one to our window. I said yes. I took a flyer. I did not put it up. I looked at her sister's face, and I understood that her sister was going to spend the rest of her life not knowing, and that I had done that to her because I had decided in my pride that I was done being used. Since that April, 11 people have gone missing on Mercy Road. 11. In the prior 41 years of the station's operation, even in the worst stretches, the road had taken maybe 2 a year, and all of them had been found. Now they are not being found. The sheriff's office has a task force. There have been articles in regional papers. There is a theory that it is a serial killer using the road as a hunting ground. There is another theory that it is something about the reservoir, some chemical change in the water that is drawing cars off the road. There is no theory that accounts for it. There will not be. I know what is happening. The station used to take photographs. The photographs were not a warning, and they were not a memorial. They were, I have come to believe, a kind of offering. A way of saying to whatever is in those trees between here and Mercy, we see them, we name them, we keep them. You may have the bodies, but we will keep the faces. Delmar had not understood what he was doing. He had thought he was knocking on the window. He was not. He was paying a toll. I stopped paying the toll. The road is taking what it is owed without the ceremony, and without the ceremony, it does not give the bodies back. I have thought many times about putting the board back up. I cannot. The pictures are gone. The ones I threw in the dumpster were gone by morning, hauled away with the trash. I tried, once, to start a new board. I bought a new camera. I pinned up a blank sheet of paper with the word Travelers written across the top. I asked a customer, an older man going north to see his daughter, if I could take his picture. He said sure. I took the picture. I printed it. I pinned it up. He got to his daughter's fine. He called me the next day to tell me actually, because he thought the tradition was charming. He asked if I wanted him to send me a postcard. The station did not want his picture. The station wanted the pictures it had chosen. The people I had felt the pressure for. The people whose faces had gone on the wall because something in the store had wanted them there. The new board is still up. There is one picture on it. The man who arrived. Below him, there is nothing. The pressure does not come anymore. I have not felt it in over a year. The station has given up on it. It takes what it takes, and it does not bother to mark me first, because it knows I will not play along. I am closing the station next month. I am 60 next year, and my heart is bad, and I cannot be the only one awake anymore. A developer from Louisville has offered to buy the land. They want to put up a truck stop with a chain restaurant and a laundromat. They're going to tear down the garage and the trailer where Delmar lived. And they are going to repave the lot. And they are going to put up big, bright signs. I hope it works. I hope the lights are enough. I'm going to move in with my sister in Owensboro. I have not told her why I am leaving. I have told her I am tired. She has not asked more. There is one thing I have not been able to do. I have Aaron Petrie's photograph, the one I took the night he came back. After he left the bathroom, after he went out to the Civic, I realized I had taken it without meaning to. I must have done it when he was at the door the first time. My hands had done it without my head. The camera had been in my hand, under the counter, and I had raised it, and I had taken the shot, and I had put the camera back, and I had not remembered doing it until the next morning, when I found the camera on the counter and the memory card full. I printed the picture before I melted the card. I do not know why. I put it in an envelope in the drawer of my desk upstairs, and it has been there for 2 years. It is the only picture I kept, the only one that did not go in the dumpster. In the picture, Aaron Petrie is standing by the door with an empty Coke can in his hand. He is looking at the camera. He is smiling. A small, tired smile. The kind a young man gives a stranger at 4 in the morning when the stranger has been kind to him. Behind him, through the glass door, you can see the pumps, and past the pumps, you can see the turnoff to Mercy Road. And past that, you can see the tree line, and in the tree line, between two pines, there is a shape. It is the height of a man. It is the width of a man. It is not a man. It does not have a face. It is standing at the edge of the road, and it is watching the station, and it is waiting. I have looked at the picture enough to know that the shape is not a trick of the light. It is in the picture. It has always been in the picture. It was in every picture we ever took. I went back and I looked at the ones in the box the night I threw them out, and the shape was in all of them, behind every traveler, in the tree line, watching. Delmar had photographed it 200 times for 41 years. He had never seen it, or he had seen it and he had not told me. I do not know. He is not here to ask. I am going to take Aaron Petrie's picture with me when I leave. I do not know what I am going to do with it. I have thought about burning it. I cannot bring myself to it. He came in to go see his brother. He did not make it. He came back to use my bathroom, and he asked me if I had felt anything, and I lied, and I let him go. And I did not tell him that the thing that was wearing the shape was not the part of him that had made it home. Somewhere between mile 18 and my station, the real Aaron Petrie had gone into the trees, and what had come back to me had been polite and confused and kind, and had thrown his Coke can in the trash like a person who had been raised right. I owe him the picture. I owe him somebody keeping his face. I am going to hang it in my sister's guest room where I will sleep, and I am going to look at it every night before I turn off the light. I am going to learn the shape in the trees behind me. I am going to know it the way Delmar knew it, without admitting he knew it for 41 years. And when my heart finally gives out, and I go wherever I am going to take the shape of me in my eyes, so that whatever is waiting for me on the other side will know that I saw it at the end, even if I did not see it in time. The sign at the turnoff still reads County Route 114. The locals still call it Mercy Road. The station's last day is the 14th next month. If you ever drive that way, do not stop at the station. Do not fill up. Do not use the bathroom. Do not let anyone take your picture. And if you already have a photo from that road, do not look too closely at the trees behind you. Some things do not chase. They wait to see if you notice them.